right, so today we thought we'd do something a little different. Instead of Ryan and I kind of doing our weekly update, we have our own Scavenger correspondent at eBay Open. It's Troy. Everyone knows him as T-Satt on the forums. Hey, Troy.
How's it going, guys?
Cool. I really want to thank you for joining us today. You came on the forum and you just started doing like a download of all the info that you were learning at eBay Open, and it was really getting people excited. I think it's the first time anyone's ever done that on, it's for a group, so everyone really appreciated it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just, especially we always have a lot of questions with each other and, kind of saying, I wonder what eBay thinks about this, that, and the other thing. And I figured, not everybody's going to have the opportunity to come down here. And since Veronica and I were going to be here again, I said, I'd take as many questions as I can, get as deep as I can on some of them.
Yeah, and, the thing I love...
that knowledge back to everybody on the forum.
Yeah, and I think the thing I love about... you is I get kind of grumpy on the forum just because sometimes people just ask questions without really doing any research, or they answer without giving any evidence, and and I really try and run a tight ship. I don't want to be putting out a lot of rumors or unfounded info based on people's fear, because that's what a lot of it is. People are running businesses. Oh, yeah. They're depending on this money, and there's so much fear can happen. And you're really good. Right. Anything that you say, you back up with some kind of evidence. So
yeah, I've always wanted to do that, and I think coming from my background in accounting and finance, you don't want to be able to just say something and not back it up. So before I kind of throw things out there, I want to have as much research as possible, and that's part of why I actually still like going to eBay Open, even though we didn't go to a lot of the breakout sessions this year, because a lot of them were more for the basic new sellers, and there's going to be new sellers every year. We wanted to spend more time because they had a 10 to 20 actual eBay tech folks broken down by area. There was a section for search and returns and shipping and that type of thing, where I could literally take the list of questions and start at the person on the left and hammer them and get a bunch of stuff and take down some notes and take a step to the right and start hammering the next person. And you could really get into a conversation even better than an email, where you can really understand where they're coming from. The biggest challenge that eBay has, obviously their biggest, their biggest competitor is Amazon, even though they are fighting off the Etsy's and the Poshmarks and the Mercaris and all that. Amazon controls Amazon. They want to make a change, they snap their fingers, they're done, and anybody who's selling there is just going to have to shut up and color. They're just going to have to do it. Whereas with eBay, there's so much color, there's so small mom and pops that are doing it on the sides to big corporations. When they want to make a policy change, it's very difficult for them because they're having to get 2 million people to all go in the same direction when they're trying to implement something. And right, wrong, or indifferent, if we agree with the implementation or not, if they want to make a change, they've got to herd chickens to get everybody to follow that path. Right. While at the same time having a platform that works for the part-time seller as well as the big company. So you really can feel the challenge that they have to get it better. And, whether we agree with some of the changes or not, the thing is they're always trying to do this to try to generate more, income for us, more sales for us, as well as obviously more sales for them. They do these things with all of the best of intentions, but it's not easy to do so. So it's good to have. And, the best part is we can bring up a lot of issues that we have. And I think every single person that I was talking to, I'd say, that's great. I get it. How about this? What about this issue? Can we go down this other path to make it better from a seller perspective? They'd whip out a notebook and they said, that's a really good idea. They jot that down and says, well, they can't promise, obviously it's a big bureaucracy, but you get that ability to be in front of them, FaceTime conversation, and they can see in your face, they're serious about this and that's a good idea. Let's make the platform better. I think that's probably one of the best benefits of going, even if you don't learn something in a breakout group, getting that time with them is huge.
Yeah, back in 2012 or 13, it's been a while now, eBay was doing these kind of conferences, but they would do them in different parts of the country too. So we went to a couple of them when they were on the East Coast. And I did really appreciate that. The sessions themselves were often very basic and not that interesting. But it's like you said, they would have employees standing in front of a computer, and you could go and ask them a question, and you could actually go to your store and show them things that were confusing. And
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and it was great. I mean, there was a couple of times we actually logged into our store, and I said, "How can I see this?" And they said, "Well, log into your store." And I said, "It's not there." "No, I'll show you." And then they get a blank look. "Oh, I guess it really isn't there. We need to jot that down and go fix that." So, and then I had to go remember to log myself out of my store, so I'm not, open in the expo hall. People are, changing my prices.
Right. So, and just so I'm clear, so you were at eBay Open 2018. This is in Vegas, and this is just like the big eBay conference.
Yes.
What, it's 3 days long or something?
It was check in on the first day on Tuesday, and then all the way up to the final party on Thursday night. Right. So, and it's really a good time. I do recommend. I mean, it's like I said, between it's $275, and you're probably getting that much back in food, because they really do feed you really well. You get you've got to stay at the hotel. We stayed at Mandalay Bay this year for $89 a night. Now, of course, there's like $50 in resort fees a day, but so it's not 100% cheap. But you can scavenge it. I brought the Keurig with me, so I didn't have to pay for expensive coffee. I brought the blender with me, so we can make margaritas in the room. So so you can kind of do a little bit on the cheap
and just write it off. It's a business.
Absolutely. And we got in a day or two early. We stayed a day or two late. It's basically a tax advantage vacation at the same time. So and you can make it what you want if you just want to go learn and go to the sessions, and go. The general sessions are always really interesting. That's when they kind of drop some of the big stuff, like that we'll talk about. But like I said, the third day we only went to the general session, and we just hung out, talked to all the eBay folks. Obviously we're big on 6-bit, so we talked a lot with the 6-bit crew. They were showing me how to get really detailed into some reporting that I wanted to do. They took the time to do that. So while everybody else is in breakout sessions, you can really stay in that expo hall and get a ton out of it. We made some good networking contacts. I got some sourcing contacts. I've got actually 2 different kind of business stream things that I want to start working on to kind of add on to our eBay business. So, I mean, it really is what you make of it. I think the first time we just kind of went to learn, but now it's much more about getting detailed, getting deep with some of the eBay folks, as well as, trying to get good networks, good contacts, that type of thing. It's actually, I think it really is worth it.
Right. And, as we always try to do as scavengers, I mean, we try and assume eBay has good intentions. We don't see eBay having bad intentions, but, we do be skeptical if implementation is bad. So, and I think that's what we're going to talk about today, is their intentions, and then let's just talk about how we think it'll roll out. Okay, so number one, was there any talk of the missing photo issue? That was a big thing.
Honestly, not really. And I don't think Veronica had heard anything about the glitches either. Kind of like, she's not really. I mean, so the first general session that we started with was with Devin Wenig.
He's a CEO of eBay.
Right. And so he brought, it was kind of the elephant in the room, and then that elephant lasted about 10 minutes because he said, "Hey, we screwed up. It's unacceptable." He said, and this was to his quote, he said, "I was pissed when this happened." He said, "I can't say exactly what happened, but I can tell you some personnel are no longer in the same positions. We can't do things like that. And that will not happen again. And we screwed up."
Okay.
And so I know there's been a lot of talk in the forum about, some people, hearing some things from customer reps and other people hearing from others. And unfortunately, I can't really speak to that.
Sure.
Because like I said, we had one photo, we re-uploaded it with 6-bit, and it was a non-issue. But no, after that, I never heard any. I think a lot of people got it. It's like, hey, eBay screwed up. They made a big mistake. They're doing what they can to fix it. I think based on what I'm seeing from the forum, they could probably be more consistent about how they're fixing it and make sure it's just a blanket statement. But they screwed up. They're going to do everything they can not to screw up again. And then it just kind of dropped it. Nobody was talking about it again.
Good.
It really
so as long as they own a problem, that's the big thing. Because, it's a valid concern sellers have, because that's like one of the biggest things that's most important.
Well,
is like keep the photos,
It's not only just that. What it goes to, and I think everybody was talking to, trust. Right. One of the big words that was underlying both from Devin and Wendy and from Bob was the word trust. The big guys were saying, and I think they knew the photo issue went to the trust factor. eBay's always talking about we need to have good trust between the seller and the buyer. If the buyer doesn't trust the seller that they're going to get crap or, that it's not going to arrive or whatever, it hurts all of us. Well, that trust goes between sellers and eBay. And if we don't think that eBay has our best, are good at in their hearts and they're trying to do the best for us, and that we can trust that they're going to do the right things, they're going to get our listings in front of people, they're going to lose, sellers on the platform. So I think he really attacked even below just the glitch itself, which was trust us. We're going to do things right. We're going to get things fixed, and we're going to take care of you guys as sellers. And you had to take that to heart. Like I said, it's nice when we can get to look them face to face and they get it.
Yep. Yeah. Because I think that's the biggest complaint people have overall, is that there's this sense of eBay being kind of a mediocre company. And there's even rumors of them not being able to hire the top tech talent because, there's so many more exciting tech companies in Silicon Valley. And so everything's kind of half-ass and, implementations are kind of done in a really clunky, confusing way and bad communication. And it's just something where, again, we were on the forum where laughing, we wanted a you to work at eBay because you seem to understand. It's just we understand problems happen, but just, communicate better so we know.
Right.
It's not just a bunch of sloppy people who are just, not doing their job.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, too, because I think a lot of it comes back to just from the history of eBay. They started so long ago in a completely different world where you didn't have photos. You had to write your label on the package, take it down there. I mean, and you had to have PayPal. It was the only way to get paid. So they've had to evolve. So they have this clunky, architecture that's still from back in the day, when then suddenly you get places like an Amazon that, number one, they own everything. They are the retailer, not just, that they're a forum for retailers. They are, sometimes, you're selling on Amazon, you're competing with Amazon itself.
Right. I mean, they own everything. They have warehouses in their own products.
Exactly.
And
yeah. So sometimes you're selling a widget and Amazon's undercutting you. I mean,
right.
Selling their own version of that widget. So they own it, and because they're newer, they're cleaner. I mean, look at how many apps and programs and websites that you see now that are so much cleaner because they don't have all that architecture that they were piling stuff on top of. Yep. So then when you ask eBay to make it cleaner, well, they've got to go it's like they got to go dig up all those roots and transplant that tree and not kill the sucker at the same time. Yeah. So it really is tough for them to kind of manage a lot of that stuff. So
no, I hear you. And there are sellers that are accustomed to things being one way, and if they change the interface because it's supposedly better, then that makes old people angry. Yeah, it's just they're in a tough position, but that's what they're dealing with.
They are, and I really, and it's funny, and part of the implementation we'll talk about is the whole managed payments thing. I could see it and smell it. I've been there because I've been in their shoes. I've been on an implementation team where we're having to implement, in my case, it was new accounting systems, and, we're having to roll it out. It's a nationwide company, and they're like, we got to get this thing done in 7 months. And I literally laughed in their, the bigwig's face. There's no way in hell that's going to happen. But they're on a timetable. It's costing them money. They've got another initiative behind that they need to get going. And so it's the pressure from the top to get things done quickly while we're on the implementation team trying to get things done right. And that mixture, that balance to get it done right but get it done quickly, it's such a tightrope. And I got the feeling the only two kind of tense sessions, you were talking about the glitches, there were only two really tense sessions where sellers were on edge. The first was on the product catalog, which probably doesn't impact most of us, where they're forcing people into that new catalog, that system. And I get why they're doing it, but a lot of sellers were unhappy because they feel like they're getting pushed down in search. They can't find their items. And, for me right now, it's okay. That's a down the road issue for me to ever deal with. But the other one was on the managed payments, because I was really shocked when we got the message 2 weeks ago. Hey, we want you to opt into managed payments. And wow, that's kind of early. And then we got the phone call before we were at eBay Open, and we talked to some folks, and that's when I started getting some of the concerns. And then I really felt bad for the lady who's kind of running that group during the pop-ups when she's talking with sellers going, this is where we're at. We're rolling it out. We're asking you to opt in. However, in the first wave, these are the stumbling blocks that you're going to have to go over. Right. That was tough for her to manage because she could feel the tension and the pushback because we're like, you're rolling this out and you don't have these things there. How do you expect us to opt in?
Okay, so
it was a tough position for her.
Yeah, so let me give like a high version of what I think is happening, and then you tell me how it's going to roll out. So about 4 to 6 months ago, eBay announced they're going to do a new payment system to get rid of PayPal, and eBay's going to own it. They bought some small company, and they're going to own their own payment system. So and they're going to roll it out over the next year and a half or so. And I guess the pro side is someone could just come on to eBay and they can just put their credit card in and buy anything without having to get a PayPal account anymore. Right. The supposedly good part for a seller is they'll be able to get their money I guess not instantly, but quickly into their bank account. The con is, well, you're getting rid of PayPal, which everyone is used to. You know, how do you get all those users to switch over? And what is this implementation going to be like? Because I mean, this is like if they're implementing this managed payment system like they do a lot of the other things, I mean, that's scary, especially since the holiday seasons are coming up. So, what did it look like from there?
Yeah, I think you definitely hit it, and I'll actually say there's one other pro. So not only is, like, again, we talked about how eBay's got this long sordid history. I mean, there was no easy way of getting payments on the internet before, so PayPal came in and fixed that problem. So then everybody went to PayPal. Well, since then, the world's grown up. Everybody's comfortable putting their credit cards on different sites. Well, now you can't do that because eBay created this. It's a stumbling block. You're trying to log into eBay to buy something, then you have to log into PayPal and set up a PayPal account to come back into eBay. Right. So it's clunky. I will say not only that, though, there is going to be one other benefit to sellers, which is we don't have to worry about a buyer opening a PayPal case on us now. Where, I can't get what I want through eBay, and now I'll just open up a PayPal case. No. eBay's owning the whole thing. Yeah, and I don't think they actually bought the company. I think they're just partnering with them, Adyen, if I'm pronouncing it right. And they're the same company. We use them essentially. I come to find out, I didn't know we did, but they're the same ones that do Etsy. So it's going to be just like an Etsy sale. The buyer goes in, they put in their credit card information. When you get a sale on Etsy, say on a Monday, the sale goes through. All your sales on Monday get transferred to your bank account on Tuesday. And I think it's usually like we'll get whatever sold on Monday, we'll get the money actually on like a Wednesday by the time it clears the bank. So it is a little bit slower. You can have those daily payments. So, there is a downside that it's a little slower, but I'm not running that tight of a ship. Even, we're full-time sellers where I got to wait and I got to get that cash immediately anyway.
And the buyer doesn't have, so the buyer just puts in a credit card. They don't have to attach a bank account. They don't have to.
That's correct. Okay, it's just, like I said, it's grown up. It's 21st century. So that's going to be one of the big benefits. Now, the downsides, at least, so I think we're totally in favor of this. And even though we told eBay that we're not going to opt in at this point, and I actually wrote out a big long letter to Bob Cuppins because he put it out there. He said, "You got any issues?"
Real quick, who's Bob Cuppins?
Bob Cuppins is Senior Vice President for the selling experience, I think. He's on the seller side. He's at eBay Open all the time. He's a bigwig up there.
Okay.
And so he ran a lot of the eBay Open and stuff. I'd have to look up his title. But I actually sent it straight to Bob. I said, look, I don't want it to sound like, and I don't want to bring it up publicly or in a forum and kind of because I said, I felt sorry for the lady who's running the program because she's feeling this pushback, and it does no good to just kind of say, well, y'all are stupid doing this the way you're doing it, so I'm going to publicly shame you. I mean, that's not going to get us anywhere. So I wrote a long letter to Bob, and Bob responded. So like I said, if people have some issues, trust me, it's him, and he will respond. Where I said, the big stumbling blocks for us right now, no third party in the first wave. So we're on board with where it's going, but in this first wave, as they're rolling out the implementation, they have to control the variables that can trip them up. So they're not allowing third party apps. So we couldn't use 6-bit to list. So 6-bit Wonderlister, if you're opting in, you can't use those programs to send your listing. You have to go through the site because they have to put the managed payments piece only on the site. If you're using a third-party application to do your shipping, like we use ShipRush to do our shipping because it pulls in our shipments from, at least right now, Bonanza, Etsy, and eBay all goes into one shipping platform. We couldn't use that because of the payment side. Also, there are some bigger companies that interface with GoDaddy. And so, I mean, you're talking bigger companies that are bigger than us that are getting, hundreds of transactions a day. Well, it's doing all the payments are coming in, and GoDaddy can figure that out. Well, you can't use that if you're opting in this first time. So that's a stumbling block for us right now. We're so much faster listing through 6-bit than we are on our platform, than directly through the platform, that I don't want to take the time that it would take to add to our process, even if they're going to give us any kind of discount somewhere.
Right. So it sounds like they just haven't built they're just building the platform, and they haven't built the API to which
exactly.
non-techies just means that's a way to hook into the system.
Yeah, if you just kind of think about circles getting bigger and bigger, they're going to control that small circle first, and then once they've tackled that and there's no bugs, then they'll add third-party apps, and then they'll add this. The other stumbling block for us is no global shipping program, because the backside payment mess is going to be there.
So basically, So basically, we're all talking about the forum. So we'll all just wait till they actually get this implemented and let other people test it. And then,
if we were a smaller seller, weren't full time, and did this on the side, didn't have a third party site, I'd opt in. And there were some people that wouldn't. I say, no, for you, that's great. You're not. I mean, this isn't your full time livelihood. But for me, it's full-time livelihood. I don't want to bloody my nose and go through a lot of pain. And especially timing-wise, you're going right into fourth quarter, which is everybody's big time. If they were talking to us, I might consider it if this was like February, March. You're going into the slower time, not a big deal. But going into fourth quarter with these stumbling blocks, and it's going to be fine down the road. But I told Bob, and hopefully he'll keep us like in wave 2 or 3 when they get some of these, and they'll let us come. And then, so I have no problems with where they're going. It's just I can't jump those hurdles now.
So two things here. So eventually, at the end of the day, will there be no PayPal?
They are going to add. So it'll be back in. They did say summer of 2019. They're going to allow. So if you go to managed payments, say we went to managed payments now, buyers could not use PayPal on our listings. But starting in the summer of 2019, they're going to add PayPal back in. So let's jump forward to 2020 when this is all rolled out for everybody and we're all doing this. Then yes, you're going to be able to, buyers could use a credit card. Buyers will be able to use PayPal. They are adding Apple Pay as well. So they are really growing up and expanding those options for buyers. But just going through this implementation, it's going to be, for a year, it's going to be a little bit clunky, and they're trying to control that. So I got no problem where they're going. So it's going to be better because, like they said, there's something like 70 some odd payment options that people have like overseas. I mean, there's all these little international versions of these things that people pay with. So that's what they're trying to jump the hoops. And I guess Adyen is really good internationally. So they already know how to do that.
So are you concerned about, because I mean, it's fine to get all the sellers to buy in. Are you concerned about buyers coming to eBay and they're wait a second, what's going on? There's something new.
No, I think it's going to be even better. I think some of the existing sellers, because one of the questions here's the thing, they've alluded to this, but they don't have the data because they're not PayPal and PayPal won't release it. They said, the vast majority of buyers on eBay are using a credit card anyway through PayPal. They're using a PayPal account, but they're just using their credit card on their PayPal account. I mean, we all have done that. Ourselves, so it's going to be easier. In fact,
I mean, PayPal's being used as its credit card company.
Exactly. Like I said, for us, for shipping, we're going to put a credit card on our PayPal account. So it's never hitting our PayPal funds. It's just going through PayPal to hit our credit card. Well, they're just going to cut the middleman out and cut PayPal out of that. So it's going to be even easier for buyers. In fact, they were showing Mohan, one of the programmers, they were showing him where they're going, which is, I'm a new buyer. I've never been on eBay before. I'm new. I get my phone. I like this thing. Oh, I can just create a guest account. I put my credit card directly into my app and I buy the item. I'm done.
Yep.
I don't have to go to PayPal. So it's removing barriers from buyers. At the end of the day, yeah, there's probably a volume of some buyers that are going to have to switch and no longer use their PayPal, or they can still use their PayPal down the road. But for the vast majority of new buyers, they don't want to have to go through the hassle. Yep. It's going to be faster getting people on the site. Hey, I want a new buyer who likes my item that doesn't have a PayPal account. I want him to click buy and pay as fast as possible.
Right. So also being kind of a single guy, sometimes I'm like, okay, PayPal and eBay were at one point a single company.
Right.
And they split it up. So PayPal's now a separate company.
Right.
eBay no longer gets that transaction fee, which is what the PayPal fee is, what, 2.7%?
2.9. Yeah, it's 2.9% plus 30 cents each transaction.
So, I mean, I'm just thinking, eBay corporate's just like, how do we make more a profit? They're like, well, let's get that fee back. And they're like, okay, we'll just.
Well, and it's interesting. I would love to find out because, like I said, I don't think they purchased Adyen. I'll have to go back and look. I think they were just partnering with Adyen.
Okay.
And so I think Adyen's actually getting it. Now, they did say one of the benefits is for us as sellers, we're going to have lower fees down the road.
Okay. Did they talk about numbers, though?
Yeah,
okay.
They did. They said, number one, the 30 cents per transaction fee was going away.
Okay, that's good.
So that's going to go away. And they said right now, it's, again, not final, but they're looking at a 2.7% transaction fees rather than 2%. So it's not game-changing, but
hey, I'll take it.
Blowing away the 30 cents, and hey, man, it's kind of like the casino I'm in. They live on small percentages, so every little bit adds up. I think depending on the volume of sellers, because they said it'll be generally around. They said it will go look at your account and we'll see what yours is. So I'm sure if you're like a huge volume customer, you probably get a little bit less in fees. And if you're a smaller volume customer, just volume discounts because you're big, you probably be less. But the number that I've heard on the phone and in the pop-up session was 2.7. So, for now, I'm just writing that down and moving on.
So net to anyone hearing this, we don't have to worry about this for a little bit. It's in testing phase. Don't opt in if you don't want to, and we can. Hopefully, it happens after the holiday season.
Yeah, like I said, and I'll tell anybody that if you did get the message and you're a little bit nervous, like I said, if you don't have the third-party app issue, if you don't worry about losing GSP, if those aren't stumbling blocks for you, go ahead and do it. Now, I will tell you one little wonky thing that was for your shipping. Even though buyers can't use PayPal to buy your items, as a seller, you're still required to use PayPal to pay for shipping.
Right.
So that's a little wonky. So if you opt in right now, you're going to get paid directly into your bank account from Adyen. So the money goes into your bank account, but then you'll have to transfer money from your bank account to PayPal to pay for your shipping. Or my recommendation would be get like a cash back card, put that on your PayPal account, pay for all your shipping on that, and it's not an issue. But that part is still a little wonky. So if you're a smaller seller and these other items aren't an issue, I would say go ahead. I mean, because granted, they do need people to test this system out. If we don't get people testing it, it's just going to delay till it's ready for us. And the actual eBay employees, they're using this right now.
Right.
So all those folks, they're like the first wave of this. So they're bloodying their nose on this. Now, granted, they don't do this as full time like we do, but I will give them credit. They're being forced to be the first guinea pigs out the door. So.
Yep. Okay, and one final thing on this topic, and then we got a handful of others. I was concerned not using PayPal because we've actually been taking advantage of PayPal has a thing called a working capital. We actually took out a loan from PayPal. It's just like it took like a minute, and they gave us money right in our PayPal account, and we bought a warehouse for behind our house. It was awesome. Right. So I was like, oh no, how are they going to do that? Because I've been enjoying that. But you said they're going to still have a loan program through another company,
Yeah,
right?
they actually Square Capital. So everybody's probably who knows Square, which is it's the deal. You plug it into your phone. It's got the little white plug, and you can just zip your credit card across it. Square Capital, and they were there. I didn't talk to them. Probably should have, because I may think about using them.
Right.
But Square Capital is coming in to fill that void from the PayPal side. So if you're worried about losing those PayPal loans, Square Capital's coming in to do basically the same thing, where you go get in, log in, get a loan. It seems like it's a very similar process. I think they said it's just fairly easy for them to go up to 100K.
Wow.
In terms of obviously, what you need and all the banking stuff.
So I mean, somehow they'll probably have access to your eBay store
Right.
info. Okay, cool.
Right. So I mean, giving. I think they heard and knew that sellers were concerned about losing that, so they covered that, and they covered that risk off. So I'll be honest, it's as I've been thinking, I wonder what PayPal's future is, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what percentage of PayPal's revenue comes from eBay,
Right.
But they're kind of getting cut out. I don't know what other items they use this for. So it'd be interesting if anybody knows, let me know. I'd have to start looking into where PayPal's future is going to be. So
Okay, so our next topic, eBay rolled out in the last seller update the free returns, and a lot of people, and they've really pushed it. A lot of people turned it on. We turned it on, and people are complaining about getting too many returns because they feel like eBay is like kind of making it too easy and kind of pushing people into like returning things, and also getting a lot of INAD cases, item not as described. And I loved how, as you said, they're actually FINADs, false items not as described. And so did anyone there talk about people's concern with that?
Yeah, I mean, it was still something that a lot, nobody really addressed it as kind of well, I take that back. Bob Cuppins did talk about that in one of the general sessions, where he realizes that some of the learned buyer behavior that, they're kind of responsible for has created sometimes these kind of false INADs. And he's not happy with it. And nobody at eBay is happy with it, because they see how it's impacting sellers, and sellers are ticked about it. So they are trying to address that on the back end, where they're starting to say, we're going to start monitoring buyer behavior. Right. That if we see that buyers are abusing these INADs, they're opening up these FINADs just to try to get the shipping back, that they're going to start putting barriers in front of abusive buyers, where they're saying, okay, we're no longer going to let buyers just open up an INAD and that's the end of the story and all the pressure's on the seller. No. You want to open an INAD, and we've seen you've done this in the before. You know what? You need to call us before you can do that. If you want to open up an INAD, we want to talk to you first. Or you want to open up an INAD, you're going to be forced, before you can finish the INAD, you have to provide photographic evidence of this before. So you know how a lot of us do that now. Hey, this thing wasn't what it says. Fine. Don't, send me a picture so I can figure out how to handle this. Right. Well, they may start putting those barriers. And he did even go so far as saying, if we have abusive buyers, we don't want them on the platform. We want to remove them from the platform. This was in the general session, so this is in front of everybody, and that got a round of applause. So they know it's an issue, and they're trying to do what they can. It's kind of that they have to get rid of the bad buyers without going so far as to getting rid of the buyers who that one time had an issue, and then we all say, oh, all buyers are crap. Sometimes you get that one poor innocent buyer that really did have a problem, and then we spit up on them because we got kicked in the tush 2 days ago on a crappy one. So it's that fine line of trust, but they do want to get the bad buyers off of the system. So they are looking to try to do that. I actually talked to them about, you've kind of got this triangle of trust that you're trying to build. You've got to have it between the buyer and the seller, as well as between the buyer and eBay and the seller and eBay. There's a triangle. All three of them are involved in this conversation. And I've said, look, I got no problem. We're already doing free returns on a ton of things. Let's just get the buyer happy. I don't care. Get them happy. Get them past this. Yeah. If I think there's an issue, I want to talk to eBay directly and say, let this little pissy buyer go. Let him be happy on this transaction today. Let's just be done with it, because no good's going to come from having an argument. Now I want to get with eBay directly and say, yeah, this guy over here, not so much. I don't want that to be an INAD. It really wasn't an INAD. don't penalize me for it. I can prove it's not an INAD and maybe put a mark on his record and start watching him on the back end.
Right.
So you're getting the transaction done, but then eBay, our partnership stays strong, and then we can kind of start, we're still a good seller, and he can kind of start watching those other buyers to see if there's an issue.
Well, I think you bring up two good things. I mean, number one is, its returns is not just an eBay thing. It's a problem across all online retail, Amazon, all these stores, because everyone's competing, trying to make people feel good about buying online by lowering a barrier of risk. So if you buy this thing online, you're going to be safe. If you don't like the thing, just send it back. The problem is you're also creating an atmosphere where just like, well, just buy 5 things and then just pick the one that you want and then send it all back, and it doesn't cost you anything, and that's ridiculous. And I think all companies, including eBay, are trying to figure out the best, that how to make that work.
Yeah, and and obviously from I can definitely see that, since we do a lot. We do a lot of clothing and shoes. How do you know those shoes are going to fit right? I mean, so how do you know that shirt's going to fit right? How do you know those pants are going to fit right? I mean, you don't have the item in front of you. So I'm starting to think of it like a lot of these returns. I think of some of those costs to our business a lot more like an e-commerce tax. If I want to have the ability, if I'm a brick and mortar store, I'm only serving my local community. The people that are in that community are the only ones I can sell to. Now, eBay allows me to open everything up worldwide. So now that I've got this bigger exposure and I'm trying to get a lot more sales, and I have this, much bigger reach and at a lower overhead cost, because I don't have to have a brick and mortar store. So I'm running really good margins compared to a Walmart, that's on 3%, So while I'm having those better margins and that bigger global reach, there's going to be a little bit of a tax on that, because I'm going to have more returns, because I'm trying to sell them something that they can't see except for the photos and the description that I give them. Yeah. So I'm looking at a lot of that stuff, and I'm kind of going, sometimes it's just the price of the business that we're in. Now, granted, we are creating a lot of buyer behavior where they want to have the free returns, because once one and Amazon goes there or something else, I mean, everybody, it's, you're trying to catch up and you're trying to stay distinct, by doing that. So I don't know. It's something that it'll be interesting to see where free returns goes, industry wide over the next 10 years. Right. Is it just going to become where everybody's just, you're going to, wake up and say, well, everybody gives free returns. Well, the only issue, that's just part of the business. Right.
But the only issue here is that, Amazon, a Walmart, like, they're eating their own dog food. So, if they do free returns and really encourage it, they're the ones hurting when they get too many of them. With eBay, it's easy for eBay to be like, yeah, sure, do free returns, because they're just a selling platform. We're the ones that have to bear the brunt of that. Exactly. And so I think that's my concern, and the thing I've heard people talk about in the forum is also just how eBay shows it to the buyer on the other end. If there is too much just like return, and just return it, you're like, just it's not about hiding it. It's just, I think that there could be a way of just not, I don't know, encouraging
the one suggestion. The one suggestion that I think they really took heart, and it was funny, after I made that suggestion, a couple of other sellers were talking with me and they said, oh, I really like that. I hope they do that. I said, look, here's what I would like to see. I'm doing free returns. A buyer comes in and says, I want to return this item. Right. What I want eBay to do as a bone back to us for providing free return on that item is, when the buyer says, I want to return it, eBay looks and says, that transaction had free returns. So it takes that entire return process down a new path. And the buyer goes in, I want to return. eBay goes, oh, it was free returns. Big splash screen, almost like, hey, we see you want to return it. The great news for you is the buyer or the seller already was providing free returns. Here's your shipping label. You're done. Yep. De-emphasizing them even trying to go down a path of saying it's because it was not as described.
It's like, don't
exactly, don't even give them the option. Say, hey, it was free returns. We're done.
Right. I mean, they would have to, if they really are unhappy and think there's a problem, they would have to do a couple more clicks to get to that point, instead of just I think right now it's like if you want to return it, and then right immediately is it because there's something wrong? Click here, and your shipping's free. Yeah.
So I told him, I said, look, I get the competitive advantage you're wanting us to take by offering the free returns. Okay, so I want you to do this for me, eBay. Give me a better and a de-emphasized INAD path. So while I'm doing free returns like you're going to take those buyers down a path where it's harder for them to claim INAD.
Right.
So if it's a give and take. You want me to do X, then I want you to do Y. I've got no problem. And they really did like that process. I said, give them a splash screen. Hey, here you go. Here's your label. Move on. Be done. Make it a simple return for them. And then I don't have a chance of getting nailed with a fine ad because they were trying to get free. I already gave you free shipping. Let's move on.
So the other thing is what you were talking about is currently when there is an INAD being claimed, and if it's a false one or if I feel it is, eBay doesn't have a good process for me as a seller. Basically, I just have the option to give full a refund, and that's it. And that's what eBay says. Like, you basically have to. I still get confused. I mean, we sell on eBay full time. I don't even know. It's like you have to give them the refund, and then you dispute it, and then eBay gives you some money back if they
it's really not a good process. And I think that's part of the problem where at least eBay recognizes that these fine ads are out there, but there's not really a good process for trying to negotiate those out with eBay. And I said that's one of the things that I'm wanting to fix because, as we'll get into, there is coming up, I think it's supposed to be around in October, where they are going to start comparing your INAD rate with other sellers' INAD rates in your category. Right. So like if we're doing a lot of clothing, we're going to have an INAD rate of X, and the average selling is Y. And if you're significantly above the average for those categories, they're talking about raising your listing fees in those categories. They didn't get into a lot of details.
It's like 4% or something, right? I mean, it's pretty
significant. I think it's like a 4% increase. So now the good news, there's a good news, bad news. And I get where they're going. Just like we don't want bad buyers on the platform, we also, I'll say this, I don't want bad sellers on the platform.
Totally agreed.
If there's sellers out there that are scammy, that they're just giving buyers a bad experience on eBay, there's still people that think, eBay's all about scams and money laundering and that kind of crap.
Right.
I don't want those sellers on the platform because that's keeping buyers from coming on the platform, so I can't get more chances for sales.
Right.
So they're trying to weed folks out because these, so they're saying we need to get the sellers whose INAD cases are bad to get motivated to not have the INAD. Sometimes the seller, isn't doing their job and they're a bad seller and they need to work on it. Right. But I said there's a lot of times you can look at how much we sell. We don't get INADs, and suddenly recently we've had a few, even though we were offering free returns. I said, so it's one of those when it's not really an INAD, I don't mind you monitoring my actual work performance, but I want it to be on true work performance. Right. When I screw up, not a problem. But when they're only doing this INAD so that they can get shipping free, I don't want that to negatively impact me.
Right. I mean,
go ahead.
We're great. And that's the problem is that now that eBay is going to do this thing where they're going to charge you a higher fee if you're too high compared to other sellers in that category, they're raising the stakes, which means that then it's very important to
monitor it.
Every single INAD, and there has to be a process,
Right. I think the key for me is going to be really seeing what our number. So the good news is they're going to measure us to our peers. I think that's fair. I think if eBay is just coming in and saying we only want INADs to be at X, and in some cases that's going to be great. In some cases it's not going to be great. So I'm okay with the metric. You're going to measure me against my peers. So as long as I'm better than, if I'm at the average or below, fine. I think wherever they're going to start putting the penalties, you might be slightly above average and they're not going to penalize you. So wherever that level is, so let's say my INAD rate is like 0.5 and, the average is 0.75. Okay, so I'm doing good. And it's at 0.1, 1.25%, then we're going to start penalizing you. So if there's enough buffer that as long as, you stub your toe or you get a fine ad that one or two aren't going to hurt you, I think most sellers are going to see that. I think they're going to agree with that. I would. It's like, hey, give me enough of a buffer that if I get a couple of bad buyers that still do a fine ad that I can't fight against, I still have some headspace before I'm going to start getting penalized with a higher ad rate.
Right.
If they do that correctly, I think they're fine. They did say, and I'll put out this for everybody out there on the podcast, that starting on August the 6th, on the growth tab on Seller Hub, there's going to be a section, I don't know what it's going to be called, but it's going to be like return rate, or it's going to be like INAD rate, where you can click on and you can see what your INAD rate is, and it's going to compare you to it's going to start showing that metric. That's going to come out here. So in a little over a week, 2 weeks. So in August the 6th, they said that rollout. So people can start seeing where their rates are, how the rating system's going to work, where they're at, that type of thing.
Yep.
And then I think the penalties are supposed to start sometime in October. So it gives everybody kind of a runway to kind of see where this is going to be and how we're working. So.
Yep. It's just another thing to stress some people out. So
right.
That's it. Okay. So
honestly, I honestly, with a lot of these things, I don't want people to stress about this. I mean, don't worry until there's something to worry about.
Right.
I mean, it's just like on having to pay for free returns on a heavy item. It's like, hey, if I have 1% of my sales has that issue, I look at things in bulk. Yeah, I'm kind of pissed that on that sale I lose some money, but in total, I'm fine.
Yep.
And it's a small tax on my business, and I move forward. So I wouldn't have anybody worry about it. Wait until you see your numbers. Wait and see what comes out. When there's something to worry about, then we can start raising up and saying there's a problem.
I mean, we do the same thing. I mean, we try out almost anything they suggest we do, and then we see the numbers. Like when they were pushing free shipping years ago, we tried it. It didn't work for us. We turned it off. We're doing free returns now. It's kind of a pain in the butt, but I don't really see too many more returns. It's not really costing us anything, so it's fine. Okay, our next topic. This one is not a big one, but you heard some interesting info, but it's not official. So that is new taxes. The Supreme Court made this determination that opens a possibility for states, counties, cities to charge taxes on online sellers. It's very hazy. Yes. No one really knows what's going to happen. But the question is, how would that work? And you said you talked to some people at eBay that kind of unofficially said what could happen is eBay just might gather any taxes that have to get paid and pay it for you. Is that right?
So, and actually that was day one. Devin Wenning is the one that said that. So
on
the
stage.
Big boy on stage,
okay,
he said,
so it's kind of
this
official.
is something that we should do for you. And obviously, that's a statement. That's not a plan. We haven't seen everything roll out, but I'm Pollyanna. I'm going to take people at their word. When he says, and I honestly think this is where he would come from. If a little old pipsqueak company, comparatively like Etsy, can do this for their sellers, why shouldn't the big dog be able to do that for their sellers?
Because
in my heart, I think that's where he's coming from.
Right, because that's what they're doing now. Etsy says, like in Kansas, I think, if you sell an item to a person in Kansas, they'll grab some sales tax on top of that and give it to Kansas. In fact, that happened with us actually this week with state of Washington. I think Mike on the forum had said the same thing. That we had a sale and the sales tax. They pulled the sales tax out and they're filing it. So I encourage everybody. I don't know how long it's going to take, but they do say that all of the breakout sessions that they have, they end up streaming online. There is a specific breakout session with the sales tax guy and the government guy on this issue, and they actually show the history. It's really crazy that if a buyer doesn't pay sales tax on an item, they're supposed to pay use tax, but there's no way to go gather that. And they go through the history of everything they've tried to do to get a seller to have to say this buyer needs to pay sales tax on the item. That's what had been called nexus. If you had a physical presence or an employee or inventory in a state, then you had nexus in that state and you had to collect sales taxes to sellers in that state. To the point where this is crazy. Watch this. They said if a company has a cookie on your phone on an app
then technically that company had nexus in that location. I mean, they've gone to that level where it's like, okay, anybody that's got like a Skype or Facebook, technically Facebook had nexus in that location anyway. So I would watch that sales tax. They go through the history. They tell her that there's still a lot of ambiguity in there. They don't know what's coming. There are other states that are starting to move forward with some items because, like they said, this is the best type of tax ever. They're raising taxes in their state by people that aren't voting for them because they're saying, we're going to tax people in other states on all of these items. So it's a win-win for everybody. It was very scary as well as very optimistic on the same side. We don't know where it's going. We hope that the states and the local governments and everything else would have some sanity. There's still the chance that the feds would come in and pass just a global, hey, nationwide, internet sales tax, X percent, we're done. Right. States don't make this crazy and kill e-commerce. Right. Devin would talk about doing it. So I encourage everybody to watch that to really get an idea of where it's at and keep your ear to the ground. I mean, it is something we need to watch, but also watch how eBay reacts. There's nothing now, but keep your ear close to the ground and think this is something we're going to have to deal with. Right. But it looks like there's a lot of companies coming in that are going to try to handle it for us.
Yeah, I mean, the hope that to me would be is that I can sell on eBay just like I always have. I just put my items up there. I price them. If someone buys an item and they're in Atlanta, eBay knows what taxes that need to get charged. It gets tacked on to that price. I don't really have to even know how much is paid. eBay gets that from the person that bought the item, and then they give it to whoever the county or state that is asking for it. And I don't have to do any extra accounting, taxes on my side. It's just, I mean, and basically it's just people that buy things online, including me, just everything's going to be a little bit more expensive,
Exactly. And some of the best news is they're not trying to attack us. Right. I mean, they really did say the best part about it was in the South Dakota state, they said it should be for companies that are $100,000 in sales in that state, which, the vast majority of us are not going to hit. Then there was either $100,000 of sales in that state or 200 sales in that state. That becomes the issue. I mean, to some point where some sellers were saying, well, maybe I'll just give me a counter when I hit my 200th sale in that state. I stop selling in that state. Which the guy said that's crazy to think about. I mean, sales tax law should not change how you change your business, but I get why you would do that. Now, some of the good news is, like they said, that was for South Dakota. You can't apply those same limits in South Dakota to California. Right. Because if they tried to put a $100,000 limit in California, again, instant lawsuits by a lot of major companies because there's 1 million people in South Dakota. There's 50 million people in California. You can't have that same threshold in two states like that. So again, there's still just going to be a lot of ambiguity about how to do this, and so that they don't cut their nose off to spite their face in some of these locations. So,
okay, the next topic, and again, I don't want to. This is like the ongoing schism among scavengers.
There's many schisms, but this is one of them.
You were talking to some eBay employees about stale and stagnant listings that are on eBay search, and this is the whole argument we always have about should we list things good till canceled, or relist every 30 days, or even sell you end things and relist them as brand new every 30 days. So what did the eBay people tell you? And by the way, they don't tell you exactly what's going on because no one can really know what's happening in the eBay algorithm because they give away their cards.
Exactly. So this is how it kind of came up. We had when you come to eBay Open, you have an opportunity to do what they call a biz boost, where they actually run your numbers. And we got a one-page sheet. It shows all our revenue each week for the last 3 years. It shows how we've grown. It shows, it was kind of interesting because it was showing like our percentage, like our click-through rate and our sell rate on mobile versus desktop. So it was actually kind of interesting because you could see that we had a higher click-through rate on mobile, but we had a higher sell rate on the computer. I said, why? He said, because they look for it on the phone they save it, and then they go home, and then they buy it on the computer.
No,
But
real quick. So that they give you information that we can't get off of our dashboard?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Correct. Yeah, because what you do is they opt in, and then they run this one-page sheet, and then they send you that one-page sheet in an email. Okay. But they are going over that one-page sheet there. So like I said, they're seeing your percentage of sales or percentage of give me a second. It'd be hard to find it.
I wish they gave that really to us on the dashboard.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, either on a dashboard or like, can I request a report and send it? Because it really is interesting because it shows what your late shipping metrics are, how many characters you average on each listing to see if you can, more characters generally is more listing. Not necessarily in the algorithm. I actually asked. I said, if I have like only 60 characters in my title, does it push me down in search? He said, no, but usually the more characters you put in the title, it sells better because you're providing more information to the buyer. Right. It tells you how many photos you had. So our average was 8 photos on a listing. He said, well, maybe move it up to 9. Maybe you can find a couple more, and it just gives more information. Not that it pushed you up or down in search, but that you're just providing more information to the buyer to actually get a sale. So part of that was, here's how many listings you have that are, we call it fresh. I forgot what they called it. Then how many were stale and how many were stagnant? And went, aha, I've heard this before. I said, I want you to tell me exactly what those are and do those drop me in search? He said, okay, if it's been out there for longer than 60 days, then it's considered stale. Okay. If it's been out there for longer than 90 days, it's considered stagnant. And yes, stale and stagnant listings drop you in search. And I was like, okay, that's great. The downside for I really feel bad for you and for everybody else out there is we only had like 1% or something ridiculous that was out there because we only have a few good till canceled listings. Mm-hmm. So we never have the chance to get out there and be stale or stagnant. So I really didn't drill in and say, well, he said, yes, it drops you in search. I said, how much does it drop me in search? He says, I don't know, and I can't really say. Right. And I feel bad for not drilling in because some of the questions that came back was like, well, if I change photos, if I change price, if I change the title, is it no longer stale and stagnant? And I went, oh, man, I really should have asked that question.
Well, real quick,
so the good news –
well, I mean, to you is this. I mean, you don't sell everything within 60 days, so how are you not having stagnant items?
Oh, heck no.
So
here's what happens. What they're looking at is the listing number. So every listing has its own number. We've all seen that. Right. It's a 12-digit number. So it says on this listing number, is it older than 60 days? Well, since all of our items end after 30 days, no, none of my numbers except for the good till canceled can be stale or stagnant. So the only way you can have a stale or stagnant listing is by having it listed as good till canceled.
So all it takes is just to fool. I mean, it just seems
a new number.
It seems completely arbitrary. So all people do is just relist. It's the same old junk anyway, but eBay will it reward you? Oh my God.
Yeah, well, I think it just says, hey, the listing is newer and fresher. Now, here's the interesting thing. Again, we're all trying to crack into the brain of Cassini. Right. So both the eBay guys as well as John at 6-Bit both confirmed that when you do a relist, okay, even if I auto relist through 6-Bit, or if you're using the relist function on eBay, even though you're getting a new item number, the sales history from its prior listings is still attached. It's almost kind of like a little bit of a history, like a boat anchor a little bit, saying, yeah, you're now number 1, 2, 3, but you used to be number 4, 5, 6. And before that, you were number 7, 8, 9. And before that, you were da-da-da-da. So even though you're relisting, eBay knows it's a relist. This isn't a new, fresh, whiz-bang new listing. It has old sales history associated with it. And I'll kind of get into that a little bit later. Yeah. If you do sell similar, it's a brand spanking new listing. There's no history behind it. And John at 6-Bit said the same thing, said, well, if you're using our auto relist function, that's technically what it's doing. It's relisting. Now, the good news for us is we can let our listings end, and then in mass, I can select a whole bunch of them, schedule them out, and I can click a button on 6-Bit that says, send this as a new listing, and it blows away all that history.
I mean, if this is true, it just seems so silly to me. It's so arbitrary. It's just basically fooling.
Here's what.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. I mean, obviously, everybody's trying to boost themselves in search, and I got a better flavor for all of that. Here's why they do that. eBay wants sales to happen. They want us to convert listing into sales. They want buyers to buy a lot. End of the day, that's what they're looking for. So when they see a listing that sells, they say, a buyer liked this listing. So any other buyer that's looking for something similar, we want to drive them to the listings that are selling, because that's going to create a conversion. It's going to create sales for that seller, and it's obviously going to create fees for them. They're not in the business of hosting listings. They're in the business of making listings get converted into a sale. So they use this sales history. I've watched some guys that were, kind of like you've talked about, where they can just buy and source the same thing over and over and over and over again, and they will spend a lot of time and money crafting that multi-quantity listing to be as perfect as possible, because it raises them in search. It's showing great sales history. They're generating a ton of sales, and all they have to do is buy the new item. Mm-hmm. Obviously, for us, we don't do that because 99 times out of 100, we're selling a one-off item. But that's what eBay's getting to. The whole point of trying to see how well a listing is selling and what the sales history is on that listing is what are the chances of converting.
Right. I get that, but it's just it doesn't seem like a reasonable expectation that every single item on eBay is going to sell within 60 days, especially when you start getting into long tail items. Like, it doesn't matter. So I feel like this is super. If what you're saying is true, it's really disappointing to me if that's how eBay search works. And basically, what that would mean is good till canceled should only be used on multi-quantity listings.
Honestly, for me, that's the way I do it. And I've heard some other people, I think that one guy from Australia was kind of alluding to that, and I've heard that other places. But 30-day listings. Right,
but we have heard Griff say on his radio show,
I completely agree.
You should list good till cancel.
Everything should be good till cancel.
And he's talking to people like us,
I think the only reason that I could see why Griff would say that and some people would say that was because obviously I think it helps you in the Google search because it's out there longer. So more of those bots that go out there and look for listings and stuff, because you're longer than 30 days, you have a better chance of actually hitting search.
Right.
But here's the one thing that I'll say about this. So what did we find out? Yes, a stale or a stagnant listing, it drops you in search. How much? They said, we don't know. I would venture to say it's not that much. One of the things that I found out when it comes to, not using special characters or having good pricing or having good photos or having a fresh listing, it really is where you land in best match is a soup. They take all of these factors of you as a seller and they say, how are you doing in terms of photos? How often are you converting? How good of a price are you on your items? Are you offering free returns, free shipping? All of those little factors, there's probably, I bet 25 to 30 of them. All of those factors are little kind of, dials and graphs as to how good you are as a seller and how much that's going to match for a buyer. It's just a big soup. And all of that together puts you in best match the way Cassini can see. Right. So is being fresh the end all be all? No one thing is. And kind of I was trying to allude to that. Because look at you guys. You guys could really care less. You guys technically, I'll bet. And I think it's fine because obviously you guys are ton good till canceled. Obviously, almost probably most of your things would be, quote, stale or stagnant.
100%. Right. We're 100% stale.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys are stale and stinky at this point. But guess what? You still convert to sales.
Right.
So it's obviously not a game changer. It's not something you guys need. Like I was saying in my analogy, I said, you just take that ingredient out of your soup and you sell a different soup. And you know what? It works fine for you guys. So I don't think anybody needs to really lose their mind about, oh, my God, I'm dropped in search. It's not, you know what? That may be like a 2% piece of how good you're going to have something to convert if you
Right. I mean,
got good items with good photos and good pricing, you're going to sell.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's why the argument that we have about this goes around and around and around way with people is that if you're selling really competitive items,
Exactly.
then that could be the extra boost that helps you. If you're like us, we're selling really weird, wacky stuff where we may be competing at most 100 other people. We wait till other people sell theirs. Ours always pop up. There's few buyers for this anyway, and we just wait, and it's fine.
Exactly, like we've talked about. I mean, you guys are kind of on one end of the spectrum. You're looking for a universe of buyers that's fairly small on a lot, because you're looking for that one wacky thing that somebody has to look for to find.
Right.
Well, you're going to find it. Do they care that you're high in search? No, because there's only going to be 2 other items out there that's going to be similar. If I'm in clothing, it's something I have to factor in. It's partially why we went to 6-bit and everything else, because right now we're using a lot of more commodity type items. So I've got to fight with 10,000 other sellers. So I'm using that commodity item to fund other things. So for me, it's something I have to do in my business.
Yep.
You don't have to do in yours. There's not a right or wrong. It's just for your model. It's like if I was doing nothing but clothes and I was doing good till canceled and I wasn't doing free returns, my sales are going to be lower. It's just most likely going to happen. The more dials that you dial down because you don't want to do that, you're going to get lower sales. And you can do that. It's just probably going to impact.
Right. And
how much? Who knows?
And we've talked about this. We're the illicit forget it people, because then we're spending our time getting more stuff, doing other things, and they're the illicit intent to it, where they're a listing and then they really want to convert sales and they're really making sure they're selling things quickly. And it just depends where to me, it's all about time. Where do you want to put your time? So it's a choice.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Do you have time for a couple other things?
Oh, yeah. I got plenty of time. Yeah, cool. I got plenty of time.
All right. So the other thing is, which was exciting, you mentioned that eBay may be implementing multi-user access to an eBay account.
Yes. Yeah, I wish I could give you more of that. That, once again, was in one of the general sessions. I think it was Mohan that actually put that out there. And Mohan's a really good guy. He's a solid programmer. He's one of those guys that when he's on it, he gets things done. He brought it up. That they are going to start having a multi-level access to your account, so that you can have an employee log into your account, but they can't change, your PayPal account. They can't do X, Y, and Z, exactly what you guys were looking for. So you can have somebody in any location, literally worldwide, if you wanted to just take pictures and send the pictures to a lister in Thailand, for Christ's sakes, they could get on your eBay listing directly and they could list, but they wouldn't have access to a lot of items. So they're going to give that multi-level access. I don't think it's going to be ready in 19. I think he's going to start working on it in 19. I wouldn't want to say it's going to be ready in early 19. I have a feeling with some of the managed payments and some of this other stuff that's probably going to take some resources to get done right. But it is something he said, I'm going to get this done. They talked about it before.
Right. So it'll
be great.
On eBay, the most of their sales are done by these huge giant companies that probably have a lot of employees. How are those big companies dealing with allowing all their employees access? They're
going to use third-party access. So with 6-bit, I can do that. When I'm on 6-bit, I can go in and I can create an account, but they can't see X, they can't see Y, they can't see Z. So they're using a third-party platform. They can crank out a lot of listings, yet they can keep their employees from seeing all their information, seeing their payments, seeing how much money they're making, all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, I guess that would just be great for us, because we wouldn't need a third-party platform if we could have that.
Right, exactly. That's why when I heard about it, that's why I sent it to you guys. So you'd love that, because you guys really don't want to have to pay any fees or anything anyway. So
I'm like, just eBay, just do it. Don't other people do it,
Right.
Okay, the other thing is, you kind of mentioned it at the top of the podcast, and I don't think it's really that interesting for me, but I think I'd like to hear more. The product catalog. So eBay, this is mainly for people that sell commodity items, and what eBay is going to do a thing where they make everyone. Are they moving towards an Amazon model where there's one photo and everyone just is on that one listing?
Yeah. It was kind of funny. It basically is, and right now it's on new. It's already in place. It's on new items, and it's, I don't know, there's 11 or 12 categories. It was something I was sitting in on, and I was kind of well, it's kind of interesting, but it's not really something I'm dealing with right now. And so kind of like now, if you go on to Amazon or go on to eBay on some of these items, you're looking for, like, say, an Apple TV.
Right.
Well, okay, you've got, how much RAM do you want to have in it? How, what version of it, what mode, and you're selecting your price points. It is a lot more where you get a flash page that isn't showing everybody's listings. It's showing all of the listings that you can sort through, and then once you kind of fine tune your search, then it shows you the listings that match that search.
And then they probably put forward a seller that has the best rating.
Yeah, and then you're so it's kind of like what it's doing is, instead of saying I want to look at an Apple TV and you get 100,000 listings because that's how many are out there, it says first, okay, what color do you want? What version do you want? The first version? You want the most recent version? So you're putting in all kind of like the stuff that you see on the left side of most of our search screens. It flashes up and it shows you all of those items in the catalog first, and then once it truncates down, then you can see the listings that match the criteria that you had. So I know in fashion it's nowhere near, at collectibles that are nowhere near that. They know they can't even touch that. So for 90% of the stuff that we're doing, it's not an issue. I think it's the big companies that are putting a lot of product, that are basically probably cross-listing their stuff on Amazon. Right. It really is a lot similar to the Amazon experience. And that was some of the things that some of those sellers were pretty tense about, because they're saying, hey, you're forcing me into the catalog, but I can't even find my items in search. There was some tension in the air. There was some unhappy sellers about that part of the product. Right. I think for most of us on the forum and in Scavenger Life, it's not something we have to worry about at this point. If you're not doing a bunch of new electronics or housewares or things like that, then it's not something that's going to impact you. Yep. I would actually love to find out if there's anybody here, maybe comment on the forum if they're having to use the catalog, what they think of it and how that's going, because there are some things that I'm looking at kind of down the road in the future of getting into that would probably fit into the catalog model. So.
Right. I mean, I guess the good thing for me as someone that buys on eBay is, so if I'm trying to find an Apple TV, there's just like thousands of them. And so it's like, there's no way to really search well except by price, really. But then everyone's about at the same price anyway. So I guess that's good, but I guess for a seller that can be bad, because then you're having to figure out, how do I get the buy box,
Exactly. And it was so funny listening to people try not to say race to the bottom and win the buy box, because obviously those are Amazon terms. Right. But they finally just said, it's kind of what you're forcing. So
you don't think that will ever happen for all the weird stuff that we sell? I don't see how it would be possible, without.
I don't
barcodes.
Think they're going. I mean, I'm not going to say. I know they're not touching it yet, because they just can't. There's just too many item specifics to go through to really refine that right now. I think if they were to hit it, I think they would stay in the new. Mm-hmm. And I think, possibly like shoes and clothes I could see coming down the pike. But even then, I mean, how do you say a blue shirt looks like a blue shirt looks like? I mean, you can say blue and plaid and Brooks Brothers and, linen and I mean, so it would be very tough to take that volume of a myriad of different product descriptors and return to the buyer what the buyer was looking for, because that's what they're trying to get to. How can I quickly get the buyer what they want?
I feel like it could only work on something that had a barcode or an ISBN a number, like a book,
right, quite possibly, because when it's just us putting up random items, I mean, how do you make that fit into a catalog when you can just scan it like you do on Amazon, scanned in the catalog, done?
And plus, the kind of weirder stuff that we all sell doesn't have that problem like the Apple TV, because there aren't thousands of the same thing. I mean, there might be 200 at most.
Absolutely. So
okay, the other thing is, so someone else who you met there, Mike Cottage, I don't even know if that person's a man or a woman. I never noticed.
It was a guy. He was there with his wife. Yeah.
Yep. Well, he mentioned that they said that the fall seller update is going to come soon. And I'm like, there's something else coming? Like, oh my God.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they did mention it's coming. I would say the announcement of what's coming is probably going to be in August. I mean, I didn't hear when, but they said it's, stay tuned. I think it's probably going to be coming out in the next couple of weeks. The good news is that should be, it until the spring. And they actually did ask us, do you like having these grouped, spring, summer, fall updates? I said, yeah, I prefer that. I would hate for you guys to be doing something every single month, like some platforms do. Hey, we're changing this, we're changing that. I said, I'd rather you group your shots like you're doing. So it's okay, there's maybe 3 or 4 things for us to swallow and deal with, but we kind of know when they're coming. They're going to come in the spring, they're going to come in the summer, they're going to come in the fall, and then leave.
Idea?
Honestly, no, I have no idea with it. I said, I like you grouping your shots. Just keep the fall seller update light, because I don't want any fun surprises coming into Q4. So if you're going to hammer something, hammer it in spring or summer. So we're dealing with it when sales are lower.
Yeah, I guess I just get worried when the updates start kind of piling on top of themselves, as if they haven't kind of finished what they talked about before,
right.
And then they add something else on top of that, and it's just that's
kind of my hope.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's kind of my hope, is that, because I feel the same way you do. Wait a minute, you didn't quite finish doing well on the last items, and you still got some glitches to kind of go through on the others. Why are you trying to throw something new in there? So my hope would be is they're probably going to keep updates coming, but it may just be, maybe they go, what, we still got to deal with some other stuff. We'll lower the programming things we're going to do on this other one, so that, I don't know. So I have no idea what they're going to say in the fall seller update, but yeah, keep your ear to the ground. It's probably coming soon.
I mean, I think that's to me, the key with all of this is that there's attention. We want eBay to keep being competitive and becoming a fresh platform that buyers keep coming to. Like, I love when someone with no feedback buys from our store, because it means that they're brand new, that they chose to come here. So I think that's good. So I need them to change and evolve. That's great. The problem is that I know that there's this thing that supposedly eBay employees all sell on eBay to eat their own dog food, and I get it. But I feel like very few of them run a business, depend on this for a money. So I think there's a big difference with that. Like when I hear how Griff, he sells shirts, and that's great, but Griff isn't depending on that money.
Absolutely.
He could give that stuff away. It doesn't matter to him. And I think that's what everyone's tension is because we're depending on this for a living, and when there's too many changes too fast, it gets very nerve-wracking, Right.
And well, it goes back to what we talked about before. It's trust.
Right.
We start going, wait a minute, we didn't trust you on the last thing. You're still dealing with some issues. Oh, and now you're going to change some other things. So my hope would be that with some of the stuff that's gone on before, that anything in the next seller update is going to be kind of toned down and not going to be like a programming change that we have to deal with. My bet would be, though, that in the fall seller update, they would probably talk about the INAD return rates and the increase there. Right. I'll bet that's probably the big item that'll be out there. That'd be my guess. I'm totally guessing. But yeah, it just goes back to trust that, you hope that they're smart enough and they have enough of an ear to the ground and finger on the pulse with the other sellers that go, you know what, we've kind of jacked them around a lot this year. Maybe we need to kind of tone it down on this next one and get some things right and get some small wins back for sellers again. Yeah. And then we can go to the next major implementation.
I mean, I guess, all the flashy stuff is the sexy stuff that people love, that, or not we love, but that the people who work at eBay love to push out. I mean, I think as a seller, it's just, I want good infrastructure. I want stability. That's cool. And I guess that's not good for them to advertise because, I don't know, maybe a buyer doesn't care about that as much.
Right.
Okay, so this is the final thing I wanted to end with. So at the conference, your overall thinking, when you're talking to all these eBay employees, do you think that they're building their policies and their company and their whole thinking? Are they mainly thinking of the huge eBay sellers? And what percentage do they think about people like us? Pretty small beans.
Well, and that's kind of where we're at. I honestly think it's an interesting bridge that they have to cross, because what's eBay's unique selling position? You can find any wacky, wild thing in the world on eBay. So that's who they are. That's what a lot of people see them as. They need all the small mom and pop shops to have that unique stuff that's like, crap, I can't find something, but I bet I can find it on eBay. I want to find a collectible. Or I just need a small part for some rando car that I can't find that nobody has, but guess what? I bet I can find that part on eBay. So the biggest draw that they have is their uniqueness. So they have to keep that because that's what differentiates them from an Amazon. However, 80% of their revenue, I'll bet, comes from those bigger companies that are on Amazon or that are Walmart. So these big companies that are selling a lot of stuff. So they need the 80% of us keeping the uniqueness to keep them different, but they also need to keep paying the bills from a lot of these big companies that are blowing a lot of inventory through them, and they can get a lot of revenue from them. So they have to walk that tightrope. They got to have a foot in each platform. I think they do a really good job of catering to both, because you see there's a lot of the small breakout groups are for new folks. There's they're just kind of starting out. They only know a few things. They've got some questions, so they can actually go learn a lot from those breakout sessions, all the way to the point where you have and you see, and I heard bigger companies that while they're there, they're talking to a major vendor that's, hey, we got 10 million of stuff that we need to run through this. How can you handle this? Can you scale up? Where I hear this big seller A is talking to big seller B, and they're going to collaborate on stuff, and they're still doing that on the eBay platform. So I think eBay does a really good job of running the eBay Open where no matter what your level, you can get something out of it. I was there this time as going, okay, I know most of the stuff in the breakout sessions. So now what I want to do is actually spend more time networking and vendors. And so I did. I've got new contacts that I can call on, some of them that are scavengers that I met up with, which are some great folks. But I also met some other people for the first time, got contacts. Hey, you can do this for sourcing. Hey, here's a little income thing that I might collaborate with somebody on. So it's worthwhile to see that eBay can say, we can run a big old platform, and it can be for the small person who has 200 items in their store, and you can get a lot out of the conference, to where I'm a major company that can come in there and you can still get something out of it as well. It would have been interesting too, because I don't know if everybody knows, I think it's BFHO, which is a big, huge clothing seller. They actually had them in the last final session, and you see how this lady in, I think it was Nebraska or something, she's in the middle of nowhere. She goes from 0 to 500,000 in 2 years, so now she's 45 million on the platform.
Yep.
And so you see how even though we're small sellers, we can someday be a large seller. So yeah, they really do a great job. So whether I walked in as a small person and was talking to them, or I was a big company talking to them, we had great access. Yeah. They talked to us and they really listened. And like I said, they really took a lot of notes on the things that we were talking about. So. Yeah.
I know that companies like to keep their information kind of like, under the vest, but I wish that they would tell us what percentage of their selling is who, how much big sellers, like people, it's like us. So you and I, we sell between $1,000 and $4,000 a week, so we're not like just pulling stuff out of its closet, selling extra stuff. We're not like a big company with a giant warehouse and 100 employees. We're like in the middle.
We're that major middle.
Yeah, but I mean, how big are we compared to everybody else?
It's funny. It's funny you say that, as I've always wanted to know the same thing. It's like, could we have like a ranking and can we see of based on number of transactions or amount of revenue, like what percentile am I in, just to be able to kind of see where we're at and say, how do we relate to our peers on the platform? So we just so we can kind of see, are we way on the small side? Are we way on the big side? It would be interesting to have that metric.
Yeah. I mean, and I do agree that eBay is on that tightrope because they're dealing with all these different kind of people. And whenever there's a policy, I now just kind of intuitively know, like, oh, that policy is aimed for the people who are selling out of its closet. They don't do good photos and they don't know how to describe things. It's a bad experience. That's aimed at them. Or this one here, this is for the big sellers that are just selling a bunch of junk from China and they're getting too many returns, and that's what that's aimed at, you know.
Right. Yeah, I don't think they created that new enterprise 100,000 listings per month store for us.
Yeah, right. You know, so and unfortunately, we get kind of like caught in the middle there between these, you know, weird policies that pop up, but they're trying to solve problems. Yeah.
Exactly, because I do have a lot of empathy for eBay from that. I mean, they have to walk that tightrope. Right. I mean, so anytime that they're in the middle, I mean, they're kind of in the no matter what policy they put out there, they're ticking off somebody because maybe a small seller can't handle this, but a large seller can't handle that. I mean, the whole managed payments, there was a couple of big sellers that were there, and they said, we get, 100 transactions accounting wise a day. I can't not have my interface, so I can't opt in.
Yep.
But then Joe Schmo over here, who only, sells one or two things, he's the perfect person to opt in because it doesn't impact him. So I really do a lot of times try to have as much empathy as I can for eBay to say, you have to keep your unique selling position, that the unique, weird, vintage, hard to find items are still on the platform. But at the same time, know that you're getting a lot of revenue from the big sellers. I mean, you're trying to compete with Amazon, but yet you're also trying to compete with Etsy. Amazon could care less about Etsy, but eBay they have to say, they have to fight off a Poshmark. They have to fight off an Etsy. They have to fight off an Amazon. So they're like kind of getting hit from all sides. So it really is a tough position for them to be in because, again, they don't own the stuff. They're managing 2 million different sellers with 2 million different business platforms with 2 million different ways of selling. So it's not necessarily easy for them. So I try to have as much empathy as I can for them.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for talking today. Have a safe trip back.
Not a problem. I really appreciate it. I want to give a shout out to you and to Ryan first. I mean, I love your platform. Like I said, you were the first voices I heard of. We'll call it reason or insanity. I'm not sure of saying you can quit your job and do this, because I listen to you guys, back on YouTube when I'm in my accounting office and I'm hating my life and I'm listening to these guys going, this is possible. So I really want to give a shout out. I love, you guys, may not get enough thanks for all the work you do. I mean, this is, putting out a podcast each week and managing a forum. I mean, it's a lot of time and effort that you guys put. So I really want to thank you guys for doing that. And I want to, and thank all the forum members too. I love the people that we met. I mean, one person that we met actually lives like 20 miles from us. So we're going to try to start meeting up. And I love the people that are on the forum. I'm learning as much as I can from everybody out there. And again, for people that if you've got questions and you want to kind of take it off the forum, so I'm not killing your hard drive space there on the forum with some of my posts, you can always reach out to me at any time. And my email's out there. So
cool. Yeah, I love that we can all. I mean, we all compete against each other, but that we can do
at the end of the day,
in the community, because really there's so much to go around here. There's and that's the only way to
exactly.
do it.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay.
Yeah, and I will say, you guys have a great following. A lot of people know about you. Some of the vendors I knew listen to you guys as well. So I really appreciate it because you guys do a great job of keeping it real. You really do. I mean, there's, we met every YouTube influencer pretty much out there. We saw Cindy, we saw Chris, we saw Rally Roots, and those people are really nice. But you guys, by and large, everybody loves the platform and loves the community that you guys have. So you guys have really created something really nice.
That's very nice to hear. Thanks.
No problem.
Okay. Well, have a safe trip home.
All right. Thanks a lot, Jay.
Okay. Bye.